Balqais, please, the screen and the audio is yours.
Okay, Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera to my colleagues in Indonesia, Jakarta. Basically, our presentation today will be focusing on coverage extension, among other things, especially for the self-employed workers in Malaysia, in terms of the experience of Malaysia. Everybody knows that we are on the brink of the greatest human transformation ever, where the world is aging at a rapid pace. So Malaysia is not spared from this wonderful phenomena where life expectancy is a lot longer. While living longer is good, we only want to add not only years to our life, but we also want to add life to our years. We want to live our years with dignity, with a lot of financial means, the ability to do a lot of things. So like Malaysia, I think all of the other countries are also aging, and Malaysia today is considered an aging nation, and we're poised to become an aged nation by 2043 and super aged by 2057. And this is if we use the age of 65 as a cut-off point to say that these are older persons of a certain percentage. So as you are aware, a country is deemed as aging when 7% of its population constitute the elderly, aged a nation when the population of the elderly constituting about 14%, and super aged means we have 21% of the population being from the older persons. So we are going to quadruple our number of older person in maybe 40 years time, and we need to prepare for this eventuality. And the aging phenomena, of course, give rise to other things. Are we prepared in order to handle our retirement, because we have a lot more older people? So the implication of aging will be there more dependency on the working age adults. So today in 2022, 2024, I think the numbers are not that much different. For one older person, this person is being supported by 9 working age adults. So we have about 10 people supporting a particular older person. But by 2060, that number is significantly different, whereby we have only 3 working age adults supporting 1 older person. And this brings tremendous pressure to the system, to the society, to the nation as we prepare for this phenomena, because that older person may not have anyone else to support him because if they don't have children. And another implication will be a shrinking workforce, whereby the working age adults will get smaller and smaller as the number of portion of the person will start to increase. So there will be a 5.5% drop based on global research for 10% increase in population above a certain age. That's impact to GDP as well. So we need to prepare for that. Can we afford that GDP shrinkage apart from population aging? And then thirdly, of course, the healthcare spending will start to burgeon, will start to increase to a phenomenal level, because we cannot deny that older person will need more healthcare, will need more aged care, will physical ability decline, will cognitive decline, and work at a certain point. So there's always a limit of to what time people can now. Looking at our labor force is healthy. We have a labor force participation of about 70% in Malaysia in terms of working age people who are engaged in the labor force. But if you look at the numbers, I want to show you like the gray line with the gray bubble that represent Malaysia's participation in labor force among the working age adults who are part of the labor force. But if you look at male participation, it's significantly very, very high. In fact, between the age of 20 something to 55, you still have more than 90% participation among the males. But there's a lot less female participation in labor force. It matters because when you work, you have contributory capacity. And I'm from the EPF. We are a defined contribution scheme, and it depends on your ability to contribute. Do you have contribution capacity? Do you have contributions density? Because when you work, you consistently contribute, then you're making your retirement or nest egg larger and larger, and over time, the compounding effect will come and kick in, and you will have a substantial sum for you to decumulate your later years. But what's worrying is that you have to look at the column bars at the bottom. So the column bars represent people who are with us, people who are making contributions or actively contributing with it. And it's very, so if you look at someone between the ages of 20 to 24, workforce participation is 66%, but EPF is only covering 60%. Where is the 6%? Means that they are engaged in the informal work, and our legislative framework today, we don't cover the informal sector. We don't cover people outside the labor force, and also for people who are in the informal sector as well. So, but okay, it's not bad, because if you look at that, I'm not only capturing 6%, so that's okay. But what's more worrying is if you can see the trend, after the age 30, the participation and active contribution with EPF is declining. But people are still in the system. So for instance, someone between the age of 30 to 34, the labor force participation is 88%, and we are only capturing 53%. Where's the other 30 something percent? So this is showing that the employment in the informal work is getting more and more prevalent among workers, because they want the flexibility. But for some people, it's by compulsion. It's not because of a choice, because there's not enough formal work. And that is a characteristic of any emerging economy like Malaysia, like Indonesia, and some other countries. So we are going to find the situation, and we need to do something about it. Everyone, according to United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, and everyone deserves coverage for social security. Everyone deserves the coverage for retirement. And we need to have a plan of action in order to address this. And for Malaysia, because we also allow age 55 withdrawal in lump sum, you can see that during that age, there's a big drop in the participation, not only at EPF level, but also at the national level. That's the lowest participation after the age of 55. Okay, now, definitely self-employed has been there for millennia. Across human civilization, people have been working in the informal work, in agriculture, so on and so forth. So it's not new. But with the advent of digital technologies, advent of new platforms and other, interconnectedness of the technologies that's enabling an ecosystem that's driving e-commerce, that's driving so many things, making things easy for us to access, and people barrier to entry for informal work has been reduced, significantly reduced. Any one of us can do a business on platforms, right? Can do and also can engage in informal work. And for people who value that when they're still young, they don't think that they need to, study that hard, they may want to go into this. And you can see there's a steady increase. Even in Malaysia, the increase for the informal sector is about 3 to 5% on annual basis, and more people are engaged there. And these are the people we know, but there are a lot of other people who are under the radar at all, and we don't even know they're part of even this informal sector. And a lot of the self-employed, they use the digital platforms. The informal work, of course, there are two parts: the ones that use digital platforms, and the others that engage in normal informal work that's not using platform, and there are a lot of them, right? So, but when we ask, based on a survey by PIDM, our central bank data survey, together with UNCDF, and we know for a fact that if you're self-employed, you are exposed to many financial vulnerabilities. You are exposed to financial shocks, because for sure, when you're in informal work or even self-employed, your income is not consistent. It depends on your nature of work. So 75% of people engaged in formal work in Malaysia, they earn less than 4,000. But to give you more, vivid an explanation, is only less than $1,000, right? And many of them are also earning very, very low, below 2,000 ringgit as well, or $472. So, and the median monthly income for someone engaged in self-employment is only about 496 ringgit, less than $500. $500. That means you are exposed to financial shocks. You are exposed to a lot of vulnerabilities, and the income volatility is there. That's why some of them are scared to come into a system. And secondly, the business survival. You can say that, oh, the self-employed, they are rich. But for many, 1 in 2 business will not survive. And 55%, they are the main breadwinner. They are the main income earners for their families. So it's really exposing households to many shocks. And 55%, or 1 in 2, more than 1 in 2, they don't even have emergency savings. In Malaysia, we did a survey with Bank Negara. People cannot even raise 1,000 ringgit or 250 $50 in an emergency situation, and they have income inconsistency, the work is seasonal and is very interdependent, and people spend more than what they earn. And of course, they have low health insurance coverage, because if my income is not consistent, I cannot guarantee that I can make payments year, month in, month out, and therefore a lot of them don't have coverage. And of course, we know that people who are vulnerable, they not only have poor financial literacy, they have poor health literacy, and that translates into also low health outcomes for these people. And low access to formal credit as well. 1 in 3 carry high level of debt. And in Malaysia, some people get bankrupt just because of car loans, credit cards, so on and so forth. And and we know about 20% of self-employed, they live below the poverty line, and many are in relative poverty, which is 50% living below the 50% of the median household income in Malaysia. So definitely, we have a pension system, but our pension system is having a lot of gaps. As you can see from this picture, so we have only 4% of Malaysian older persons today getting a tax finance pensions. So about 600 ringgit, translating to $150 per month, which is not bad in terms of percentage to GDP per capita. Yeah, it's about 11%, but still not great. But we only have 4%. So it doesn't help with old age, reducing old age poverty. When we study the numbers, 42% of Malaysian elderly, they live in relative poverty. So it shows that old age is not only associated with all the other declines, but they are also living in poverty. And we have a large missing middle, whereby people in the informal workers, they are not being covered by my scheme, by the EPF scheme. So they are out there trying to put food on the table, making ends meet, and they're living from, check to check, or income to income. They don't have the means to pay for a lot of things. And then we have tier 2, which is EPF, and we are only covering the formal sector today. So we're trying to make changes to our system, and we are proud to announce that we are covering now the migrant workers. By end of this year, we have to make a full coverage for migrant workers in Malaysia, and that will be a significant landmark for us in terms of covering more people. And then secondly, we're also covering the civil servants. They're also coming into a DC scheme, because our civil servants today, they are under a DB scheme, but they are going to translate into a DC scheme, because our financial liabilities for civil servants will reach close to 700 billion by the end of the century, and we cannot afford it. And then thirdly, we have the private retirement scheme. So we have a large missing middle, and these are opportunities to get people engaged. In terms of people who are making voluntary contributions, while EPF is a mandatory scheme for the private sector who are formally engaged by businesses, but we allow people to voluntarily contribute. But even people who are like me, working in a formal sector, I can also make top-ups in terms of voluntary contributions. And we have a limit of 100,000 ringgit per year that people can put in. And why we have that limit is because if I'm a sports person, I cannot be playing sports forever, because there is a lifespan for my active years. Or if I'm a celebrity, I also have limited time whereby I can be engaged by the entertainment industry. So we have close to 800,000 people making voluntary contributions, and most of them are engaged in the informal sector. So so we have a program called Aisaran. This is a government matching incentive whereby people can put money, and the government will match 20% of whatever contributions they give, and there is a limit of 500 ringgit per year. And we also establish a lifetime limit for any Malaysian who comes in and out of labor force, become an informal work. We have a lifetime limit of 5,000 ringgit. So if I put in every year 500 ringgit, then in 10 years I would have exhausted this. But if I only put 250 per year, I will need 20 years to then exhaust this matching incentive. At this moment, at the very least, it's still 20%. But for your information, last year, we increased from 15% to 20%, and we're seeing more and more people contributing voluntarily. It has increased by 40%. So we know that for this year, it's going to be significantly more, because we have increased it to 20%, and it's even more exciting for people. So now the informal work. They have shown preference to actually engage with the EPF. 70% of the informal sectors being asked on a survey said that they don't mind having auto deduction at source, and they don't mind weekly deductions, and 91% prefers contribution rates that's different from the formal sector because they're not same kind. You cannot like put them together because it's a different program. And 45% says that one of the biggest obstacle for them to put in is because of the uncertainty of the income, the inconsistency of the income, and that's stopping them. So now, what are the strategic response? From EPF, we have a multitude of things that we want to do, apart from pension reform, of course, we're trying to push for that. But our biggest concern right now will be, I think, the top two global challenge is to build adequacy and to improve coverage extension. So we're doing that right now, and we want to start with a voluntary opt-out mechanism, working with some platform providers. So it's auto-enrollment, but they can opt out, right? But we are going to go towards mandatory. We are working with the government today, but because of political situation, the government says that it's on the table, but maybe the timing needs to be sequenced in the right manner. And secondly, our response will be account restructuring. I don't know if you've heard about it. Malaysia has introduced a 3-account structure at accumulation phase, whereby we have account persaraan for retirement, account sejahtera for well-being needs and life cycle needs, and account flexible to let people access the money anytime, any amount, which I will show you later. Because when we talk to the informal sector, they said, now you're interesting, because otherwise all my money is locked with you. I'd rather not put my money with you. But because you allow me some flexibility in accessing some of my funds, I want to partner with you. So we're seeing that traction right now among the informal sector. They are now more excited to partner with us. And we've looked at behavioral science as well in doing this, because the optimal retirement will need to balance between short-term, medium-term, and long-term needs. And therefore, people will say that I'm okay to partner with you. And of course, we know we need to do advocacy work, education, and pension reform. That goes without saying, but that's not the topic for today. So I'm not going to touch on that. But coming back to coverage extension. So these are the categories that we have that we are going to pursue in the years to come. We already have formal sector, and we are going to make it mandatory for contract for service. So in Malaysia, the employers are quite interesting. They say that, okay, how do I now use, like, I'm engaging someone through not contract of service, but contract for service, like I'm engaging a consultant or contract work. And they said pay inside. So we need to work on this, because in our act it's very clear it's contract of service. So I need to rectify the act. And then the third category is the e-hailing, p-hailing, and quite vulnerable. We want to work on a system that's quite different from the other self-employed. And then the migrant workers is already covered together with the civil servants. By end of this year, we would have covered category 1, 5, and 6 by end of this year. We're working on 2, 3, and 4 in the coming years. So what we have done right now, we've also established like memorandum of understanding with Foodpanda, SolveNet, and other platform providers to work and auto opt-in with them and auto deduction at source. So we are working with them, and because it's fairly new, so we have not seen the numbers in phenomenal act yet. So we can update you guys later. And then the other one, this is how we've restructured. So EPF is planning to work on decumulation phase, and that's one of the biggest thing that we need to work on, but the timing of it is going to be very key. But because the civil servants is going to come into the EPF system, they are going to start with the decumulation phase as well. So we are going to pay monthly payouts for the civil servants who are going to join EPF by 2026 or end of this year. But at the accumulation phase, this is what we've done. We've increased the retirement account from 70% to 75%, and then as a trade-off, we give them flexible 10%. But let me tell you this, today only 30% of our members is accessing account flexible. That means 70% did not make the withdrawal, signifying that they understand the need for retirement, but what they want to know is that when I need it, the money is there, so I don't need to borrow, beg, or steal from others. So we believe that this is a good system. So these are some of the changes that EPF is pursuing, apart from the national pension reform, which we are working closely with the government. And with that, I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Balqais. Let's give an applause to Balqais, who has been very clear explaining what Malaysia has progressed.
The first question was regarding how do we convince platform providers to also do the responsibility, yeah?
Yes, that's
Okay.
to the platform providers and the workers.
Okay. Okay. So right now, of course, our approach is to go towards mandatory. So once the legislation is being changed, then the thinking right now is to have platforms also contribute, and the workers also making some kind of the informal workers to do a very low level of contribution. So it cannot be like today we have workers formal sector 11%, and the majikan or the employers contributing 12 or 13% of the salary into our scheme for private sector. But for the informal sector, we are going to have the amounts. That's a initial thinking. So even for platforms, we're thinking maybe 5+5, yeah, for 5 platform providers, and then the workers themselves. So once it's legislated, then they are going to do it. So we give examples and do benchmarking with jurisdictions like in UK, in New Zealand, although it's not properly legislated as yet, because people are still grappling how do you legislate the informal work. But there are already precedent cases whereby the judge or the worker and say that the informal worker is actually a worker and deserve social security. So we already also have a case in Singapore whereby they have mandated the informal work to contribute below the age of 30 to start contributing into the CPF scheme. So we can do benchmarks in UK, for instance. If you're an Uber driver, you're deemed as a formal sector. So the Uber is mandated to make contributions by both the workers and the employer side as well, the platform. So I guess using use cases as well as experience of other countries to say that this is a right, this is a human right, this is social security, is part of sustainable development goals, is deeply embedded within goal 1, and 10 and 8, which is decent work, goal 8. So everybody deserves the coverage. And we also speak to platform providers as well as the soalan ketiga, the third question, how we do the migrant workers. We speak to our employers and say that we could face bans for our products that are not produced sustainably in terms of not meeting SDG, and competitiveness of Malaysian goods can be impacted if we do not cover migrant workers, so on and so forth. So we use those kind of arguments to get people into the system and say that we are a country that is subscribing towards sustainable development goals, and we're committed to meeting all those metrics that are being defined and what Malaysia has pledged as well. So those are some of the things that we're doing to encourage both employers as well as government to be on our side as well, to put for migrant as well as informal work. I don't remember the second question.
Yeah, so the second question was on the migrant workers. Can you elaborate more about, migrant workers? Especially, I guess the question is Indonesian migrant workers in Malaysia. Do you have any, I think that's the context of the question.
Okay, so migrant workers in Malaysia, we are mandate contribution per all migrant workers. We're working with our immigration department to provide us with the passes. People come into work, and then we'll go and get the contributions from the employers to employ migrants. We're going to start with a very low rate because for Malaysia, we cannot shock the system or the businesses that they're going to pay immediately a very high rate. So Malaysia is going to move slowly, starting with 2% and 2%. Before we land to a more comfortable rate, because it's also a shock for the businesses if suddenly they have to have new costs which were not part of the system before. So the government is very supportive of this. So therefore, we are going to implement already by end of this year. So this is requires a lot of engagement with employer associations to make them do what is right for the people. So Malaysia believes in treating migrant workers as well as our workers the same way, because they are contributing to our nation while they are here.
Thank you.